Latham Weekly, June 2nd, 1998. Bizarre murders committed in Raccoon City. The mutilated body of 42-year-old Anna Mataki was discovered late yesterday in an abandoned lot not far from her home in northwest Raccoon City, making her the fourth victim of the supposed cannibal killers to be found in or near the Victory Lake district in the last month. Consistent with the coroner reports of the other recent victims, Mataki's corpse showed evidence of having been partially eaten, the bite marks apparently formed by human jaws. Shortly after the discovery of Miss Mataki by two joggers at approximately 9 o'clock last night, Chief Irons made a brief statement insisting that the RPD is working diligently to apprehend the perpetrators of such heinous crimes, and that he is currently consulting with city officials about more drastic protection measures for Raccoon citizens. In addition to the murderous spree of cannibal killers, 3 others have died from probable animal attacks in Raccoon Forest in the past several weeks, bringing the total of mysterious deaths up to 7. Raccoon Times, June 22nd, 1998. Horror in Raccoon, more victims dead. The bodies of a young couple were found early Sunday morning in Victory Park, making Deanne Rouge and Christopher Smith the 8th and 9th victims in the reign of violence that has terrorized the city since mid-May of this year. Both victims, age 19, were reported as missing by concerned parents late Saturday night and were discovered by police officers on the west bank of Victory Lake at approximately 2 a.m. Although no formal statement has been issued by the police department, witnesses to the discovery confirmed that both youths suffered wounds similar to those found on prior victims. Whether or not the attackers were human or animal has yet to be announced. According to friends of the young couple, the two had talked about tracking down the rumored wild dogs recently spotted in the heavily forested park and had planned to violate the citywide curfew in order to see one of the alleged nocturnal creatures. Mayor Harris has scheduled a press conference for this afternoon and is expected to make an announcement regarding the current crisis, calling for a stricter enforcement of the curfew. Cityside, July 21st, 1998. STARS, Special Tactics and Rescue Service, sent to save Raccoon City. With the reported disappearance of 3 hikers in Raccoon Forest earlier this week, city officials have finally called for a roadblock on rural Route 6 at the foothills of the Arklay Mountains. Police Chief Brian Irons announced yesterday that the STARS will participate full-time in the search for the hikers, and will also be working closely with the RPD until there is an end to the rash of murders and disappearances that are destroying the community. Chief Irons, a former STARS member himself, said today in an exclusive Cityside telephone interview that it is high time that we employ the talents of these dedicated men and women towards the safety of this city. We've had 9 brutal murders here in less than 2 months, and at least 5 disappearances now, and all of these events have taken place in a close proximity to Raccoon Forest. This leads us to believe that the perpetrators of these crimes may be hiding somewhere in the Victory Lake district, and the STARS had just the kind of experience we need to find them. When asked why the STARS hadn't been assigned to these cases until now, Chief Irons would only say that the STARS had been assisting the RPD since the beginning, and that they would be a welcome addition to the task force currently working on the murders full-time. Founded in New York in 1967, the privately funded STARS organization was originally created as a measure against cult-affiliated terrorism by a group of retired military officials and ex-field operatives from both the CIA and FBI. Under the guidance of former NSDA National Security and Defense Agency Director Marco Palmieri, the group quickly expanded its services to include everything from hostage negotiation to code breaking to riot control. Working with local police agencies, each branch office of the STARS is designed to work as a complete unit in itself. The STARS set up its Raccoon City branch through the fundraising efforts of several local businesses in 1972 and is currently led by Captain Albert Wesker, promoted to the position less than 6 months ago. Raccoon Times, July 24th, 1998. Spencer Mansion destroyed in explosive fire. At approximately 2 a.m. Thursday morning, Victory Lake District residents were awakened by an explosive blast that thundered through northwest Raccoon Forest, apparently caused by a fire that swept through the abandoned Spencer Mansion and ignited chemicals stored in the basement. Due to delays from the police barricades set up at the forest perimeter in connection with the recent string of murders in Raccoon City, local firefighters were unable to salvage any part of the estate's grounds. After a 3-hour battle against the raging fire, the 31-year-old mansion and adjacent servants' quarters were deemed a complete loss. Built by Lord Oswell Spencer, a European aristocrat and one of the founders of the worldwide pharmaceutical company Umbrella Incorporated. The estate was designed by award-winning architect George Trevor as a guest house for Umbrella VIPs and was closed down shortly after completion for reasons unknown. According to Amanda Whitney, spokesperson for the Umbrella Corporation, parts of the estate were still being used to store a number of industrial cleaning agents and solvents used by Umbrella. Whitney said in a statement yesterday that the company would take full responsibility for the unfortunate incident, calling it a severe oversight on our part. Those chemicals should have been cleared out of the Spencer house a long time ago, and we're just thankful that no one was hurt. At this point, the cause of the fire is undetermined, but Whitney went on to say that Umbrella will be bringing in their own investigators to sift through the ruins in hopes of determining the fire's point of origin. In a surprise announcement by city officials at a press conference yesterday, the Raccoon City branch of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service was officially removed from the investigation into the 9 brutal murders and 5 disappearances of city residents that have occurred in the last 10 weeks. City Council member Edward Weist delivered the statement, citing gross incompetence as the primary reason for the STAR's removal. Readers may remember that the STAR's first action upon being assigned the case last week was to search the northwest area of the forest for the alleged cannibal killers. Weist stated that it was because of their blatantly unprofessional conduct that their mission ended in disaster, resulting in the crash of a helicopter and the loss of 6 of their 11 team members, including the STAR's branch commander, Captain Albert Wesker. After the STAR's mishandling of the Raccoon Forest search, said Weist, we've decided to let the RPD see this investigation through to its conclusion. We have reason to believe that the STARs may have been ingesting drugs and/or alcohol prior to their search, and have suspended the use of their services indefinitely. Weist was joined by Sarah Jacobson, representing Mayor Harris, and Police Commissioner J.C. Washington to make the announcement and answer questions. Neither Police Chief Brian Irons nor any of the surviving STARs could be reached for comment. Cityside, August 3, 1998. Source of estate fire deemed accidental. After an exhaustive investigation by fire officials working with Umbrella's Industrial Services Division, the fire that ravaged the company-owned Spencer Estate in Raccoon Forest late last month was determined to have been caused by carelessness on part of person or persons unknown, as was announced in a press conference yesterday. Said ISD team leader David Bischoff, "It looks like somebody tried to start a campfire in one of the mansion's rooms and things just got out of control. We found nothing to suggest arson or foul play of any kind." He went on to say that while the destruction of the property was total, there's no evidence that anyone was caught in the fire or subsequent explosion. Chief Brian Irons of the Raccoon City Police Department was in attendance at the conference, and when asked whether he believed the fire to be connected to the unsolved murders and disappearances plaguing the city, Irons stated that there was no way to be sure. Said Irons, "At this point, anything I could say would only be speculation, though I will say that the fact that the murders have stopped since the night of the fire seems to imply that perhaps the killers were hiding there. We can only hope that they've now left the area and will soon be apprehended." Chief Irons refused to comment on the allegations of the gross misconduct by the STARs in their brief assignment to the murder investigation, saying only that he agreed with the City Council's decision, and disciplinary actions are being considered. Raccoon Times, August 26, 1998. Mayor announces Keep City Safe plan. On the front steps of City Hall, Mayor Harris announced in a press conference yesterday afternoon that the City Council will be hiring at least 10 new police officers to join the Raccoon Police in response to the continued suspension of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, STARS, in effect since the brutal murders that plagued Raccoon earlier this summer. Joined by Police Chief Brian Irons and all of Raccoon's council members, Harris assured the gathered citizens and reporters that Raccoon City will once again be a safe community in which to live and work. The 11, quote, cannibal murders and 3 fatal wild animal attacks is far from closed. Just because no one else has been attacked in the last month doesn't mean that the elected officials of this city can relax, Harris stated.
The good people of Raccoon deserve to have confidence in their police force, and to be secure in the knowledge that their political representatives are doing everything possible to ensure each citizen's safety. As many of you know, the STAR suspension is likely to become permanent. That unit's gross mishandling of the murder investigations and its subsequent disappearance from Raccoon City suggest that they don't care about this community. But I want to assure you that we care. That myself, Chief Irons, and the men and women you see here today want nothing more than to make Raccoon a place in which our children can grow up without fear. Harris went on to detail a three-point plan designed to bolster public confidence and keep Raccoon citizens from falling victim to violence. Besides hiring between 10 and 12 new police officers, the citywide curfew will remain in place through at least September, and Chief Irons will personally head a task force of several officers and detectives to continue searching for the killers who took the lives of 11 people between May and July of this year. Cityside, September 4th, 1998. Renovation of Umbrella Complex planned. The Umbrella chemical plant just south of downtown Raccoon is due for major construction efforts slated to begin next Monday. This will be the third such structural renovation in the last year for the thriving pharmaceutical company. According to Umbrella spokesperson Amanda Whitney, 2 of the laboratories inside the main plant will be fitted with several $1 million worth of new equipment designed for vaccine synthesis, and the building itself will receive a state-of-the-art security system. In addition, all of the connected office buildings will be upgrading computers over the next several weeks. But will this be a problem for downtown traffic? Said Whitney.
With the Raccoon Police Building just finishing up yet another one of their renovations, we know that local commuters are getting pretty tired of blocked streets. We're going to do our best not to get in the way of downtown traffic, but most of the construction is internal, and the rest we'll be doing after business hours.
The courtyard in front of the RPD building, our readers may remember, was recently repaved and landscaped after several mysterious cracks appeared in the cement and topsoil. Traffic had to be diverted around 2 blocks of Oak Street for 6 days. When asked why so many overhauls as of late, Whitney replied,
Umbrella has stayed ahead of the competition for as long as it has by keeping up with current technology. It's going to be a busy couple of months, but I think it'll be well worth the effort when we're finally through.
Raccoon Weekly Editorial, September 7th, 1998. Irons to run? Mayor Harris may be in for a rough race next spring. Weekly sources inside the RPD are saying that Brian Irons, chief of police for the last 4.5 years, may be running for the city's top office in the next election, facing off against the popular and as yet unopposed incumbent Mayor Harris, already in office for 3 consecutive terms. Although Irons would not confirm his possible entry into the political arena, the one-time STARS member also refused to deny the rumor. With his approval rating at an all-time high ever since the cessation of this summer's savage murders, as yet unsolved, and the planned expansion of the RPD, Chief Irons may indeed be the man to knock Harris out of City Hall. The question is, will voters be able to forget Irons' alleged involvement in the 1994 Cider District land scam, or his rather expensive tastes in art and interior design, which have turned parts of the RPD building into something more like a museum than a working office? Assuming he means to throw his hat into the ring, this reporter, for one, will be looking forward to examining Irons' financial records. Raccoon Times, September 22nd, 1998. Teenager attacked in City Park. At approximately 6:30 p.m. last night, 14-year-old Shayna Williamson was accosted by a mysterious stranger in downtown's Birch Street Park on the way home from softball practice. The man came out from behind a row of hedges at the south end of the park and knocked Miss Williamson off her bicycle before attempting to grab her. The teen managed to get away with only a few scratches, running to the nearby residence of Tom and Clara Atkins. Mrs. Atkins alerted the authorities, who conducted a thorough search of the park but found no sign of the attacker. According to the girl, through a police statement issued early this morning, the man appeared to be a transient. His clothes and hair were dirty, and she described a bad odor coming from him. A smell like rotting fruit. She also said that he seemed drunk, staggering and falling after her as she ran. With the plague of cannibalistic murders from May to July still unsolved, the RPD is taking Miss Williamson's encounter very seriously. The assailant bears a striking resemblance to eyewitness reports of the gang members spotted in Victory Park last June. Mayor Harris has called a press conference for later today, and Police Chief Brian Irons has stated already that with the first newly hired police officers expected next week, regular patrols will extend their routes to include the downtown park area.
Associated Press, October 6, 1998. Thousands killed as fire sweeps through mountain community. Mysterious illness may be involved. New York, New York. The scheduled mountain community of Raccoon City, Pennsylvania has been officially declared a disaster area by state and federal officials, as dedicated firefighters continue to wage war against the dying blazes and the death toll continues to rise. It is now estimated that over 7,000 people were killed by the explosive fires that raged through Raccoon in the early hours of Sunday, October 4th. It is being called the worst U.S. disaster in terms of lives lost since the Industrial Age. And as national aid organizations and international press flock to the blockade surrounding the still burning ruins of the city, shocked friends and family of Raccoon citizens had been gathering, waiting for word in nearby Latham. National Disaster Control Director Terrence Chavez, coordinator for the combined efforts of the multiple firefighting and emergency teams, released this statement to the press last night, stating that barring unforeseen complications, he expects the last of the flames to be extinguished before midweek, but that it may be months before the origin of the fire is determined, as well as whether or not arson was involved, said Chavez. The magnitude of the damage in terms of area alone is going to make finding the answers a great undertaking, but the answers are there. We will get to the bottom of this, whatever it takes. As of 6 a.m. today, 78 survivors have been found, and their names and conditions withheld. They have been transported to an undisclosed federal facility for observation and/or treatment. Initial reports by hazmat teams suggest that an unknown illness may be responsible for the incredible number of victims, as infected citizens were unable to escape due to the possibly incapacitating sickness. There is the further suggestion that the disease may have induced violent psychosis in some of those infected. Members of private and federal disease control centers have been called for extending the quarantine boundaries. And although no official statement has been released, there have been several leaked descriptions of physical and biological abnormalities in many of the victims, said one source. A worker from a federal assessment team. Some of those people weren't just burned or dead from smoke inhalation. I saw people who've been killed by gunshot wounds or stabbings and other forms of violence. I saw people who obviously been sick, dead, or dying long before the fire ever hit. The fire was bad, terrible, but it's not the only disaster that occurred there. I'd bet money on it. Raccoon City was in the news earlier this year when a series of unusual murders rocked the community. These were apparently unmotivated slayings of extreme violence, and several involved cannibalism. Already, tentative connections are being made by local press near Raccoon between the 11 unsolved murders from last summer and the rumors of mass violence prior to the consuming flames. Mr. Chavez refused to confirm or deny the rumors, saying only that investigations into the tragedy will be thorough. Nationwide Today, AM edition, October 10, 1998. Raccoon death toll rises as search and rescue teams combine efforts. The official body count now stands at just under 4,500, with the blackened ruins of Raccoon City still being combed for additional victims of the apocalypse that took place earlier last Sunday morning. As the nation's mourning begins, over 600 men and women are working to uncover the reasons behind the destruction of the once peaceful community. Local relief organizations, scientists, soldiers, federal agents, and corporate research teams have come together in a show of determination and purpose, pooling resources and accepting delegated responsibilities in order to get to the truth. NDC Director Terrence Chavez, the official head of the effort, has been joined by top researchers from disease control centers all over the world, national security agents from several federal branches, and a privately funded team of microbiologists from Umbrella Incorporated, the pharmaceutical company which is investigating the possibility that there may be a connection between their chemical lab on the outskirts of the city and the strange infection now being called Raccoon Syndrome. Initial studies of this illness have been vague and inconclusive, says Umbrella team leader Dr. Ellis Benjamin. But we're convinced that the citizens of Raccoon were infected with something, either accidentally or intentionally. All we know at this point is that it doesn't seem to have been airborne and that the final result was rapid cellular disintegration and death. We still don't know if it was bacterial or viral, or what the symptoms were, but we won't rest until we've exhausted all of our resources. Whatever the findings, and whether or not Umbrella Materials were a part of it, we're committed to seeing this through to the end. It's the least we can do, considering how much our company owes the people of Raccoon. The Umbrella chemical plant and administration facilities in Raccoon City provided nearly 1,000 local jobs. The 142 survivors are still being held in quarantine for observation and questioning at an undisclosed location. While their identities are still being protected, the FBI has released a statement listing medical conditions. 17 survivors suffered minor injuries but are in stable condition. 79 are still on a critical list following surgical procedures. And 46 of the survivors, while not injured, have suffered some major mental or emotional breakdown. There was no confirmation as to whether or not they are infected with the syndrome, but the statement did include a reference to survivors' stories that verified the existence of the infection. General Martin Goldman, overseer of military operations in the ravaged city, is hopeful that all of those still missing will be found within the next 7 days. We've already got 400 people out there working 24/7, searching for survivors and running identification checks. And I just got word that another 200 will be coming in on Monday. Fort Worth Bugler, October 18th, 1988. Possible conspiracy by city employees in Raccoon tragedy. Fort Worth, Texas. New evidence uncovered by cleanup crews in Raccoon City, Pennsylvania, indicates that the Raccoon Syndrome, the disease responsible for the majority of the 7,200 deaths that have occurred in Raccoon as of this writing, may have been unleashed upon the unsuspecting populace of Raccoon Police Chief Brian Irons and several members of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service STARS. At a press conference held early yesterday evening by FBI spokesman Patrick Weeks, NDC Director Terrence Chavez and Dr. Robert Heiner called in by Umbrella Team Leader Dr. Ellis Benjamin. Weeks revealed that there is strong circumstantial evidence that the disaster in Raccoon was a result of a terrorist act that went horribly wrong. The subsequent fires that had nearly wiped out the small city may have been an attempt by Irons or one of his accomplices to cover up the disastrous effects of the spill. According to Weeks, several documents were found in the wreckage of the RPD building that implicate Irons as the ringleader of a conspiracy to take hostage the Umbrella chemical plant on the outskirts of the city. Allegedly, Irons was furious with city officials over the suspension of the STARS in late July for their mishandling of a multiple murder investigation. The now well-documented cannibal slayings that took the lives of 11 people early last summer. The Raccoon STARS were suspended after a helicopter crash in the last week of July that claimed the lives of 6 team members. The 5 surviving STARS members were suspended without pay after evidence suggested drug or alcohol abuse in connection to the crash. And while Irons publicly advocated the suspension of his elite squad, the documents found indicate that Irons meant to threaten Mayor Devlin Harris and several city council members with the spill of extremely volatile and dangerous chemicals unless certain financial demands were met. Weeks went on to say that Irons had a history of emotional instability, and the documents' correspondence between Irons and an accomplice revealed a plan by Irons to extort ransom from Raccoon and then flee the country. The accomplice is named only as CR, but there are also references to JV, BB, and RC. All initials 44 of the 5 suspended STARS, said Terrence Chavez. Assuming these documents are accurate, Irons and his crew had planned to storm the Umbrella plant at the end of September, which would correspond exactly to the timeline described by Dr. Heiner for the Raccoon Syndrome to achieve full amplification. We're currently operating under the assumption that the takeover did take place, and that an unexpected accident occurred with cataclysmic results. At this time, we don't know if Mr. Irons or any of the STARS are still alive, but they are wanted for questioning. We've released the national APB, and all of our international airports and border patrols have been alerted. We urge anyone with information relating to this case to come forward. Dr. Heiner, a renowned microbiologist as well as an associate member of Umbrella's Biohazardous Materials Division, stated that the exact mix of chemicals released in Raccoon may never be known. It's obvious that Irons and his people didn't know what they were handling. And with Umbrella continuously developing new variations of enzyme synthesis, bacterial growth mediums, and viral repressors, the lethal compound was almost certainly an accidental aggregation, with the possible combinations of materials numbering in the millions. The odds of duplicating the Raccoon Syndrome mix are astronomical. The STARS national director wasn't available for comment, but Lita Willis, regional spokesperson for the organization, has gone on record as saying they are shocked and saddened by the disaster. Ironically, the documents were found by one of Umbrella's search teams.